Well. What do we have here? It looks to us like an illegal data transmission, a direct violation of the Mind War Communications Act. Don't be fooled, folks. Your friend Victor isn't real. He's an artist. He's an actor. He's never actually done any of the things he talks about in these videos, and neither should you. So remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War. Hello, everyone. My name is Victor. I am the Occult Technician, and this is Mind War, Season 3, Episode 10. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code MINDWAR. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now back to the show. Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. So, folks, in the second half of today's episode, we're going to be covering Wave 2 Threshold Tape 4 Color Breathing. That's why we've swapped out the American flag triangle for the rainbow triangle that you see here at the front of the podium. We're going to be associating the colors that we see here with different tools that we learn in Wave 2 Tape 4. But until then, we're going to pick up where we left off in the book Journeys Out of the Body by Dr. Robert Monroe. We were on chapter 17. This was titled The Separation Process. Dr. Monroe here says, after you have achieved the state of vibration and some control of your stage of relaxation, one additional factor must be considered. It is probable that you have already obtained it, since it is ordinarily a product of the previous exercise. However, it should be emphasized. This factor is thought control. In the state of vibration, you are apparently subject to every thought, both willful and involuntary, that crosses your mind. Thus, you must be as close to no thought or single thought concentration as possible. If one stray idea passes through your mind, you respond instantly, and sometimes in an undesirable manner. I suspect that one is never completely free of such misdirection. So Dr. Monroe is talking here about as we go through the tapes and as we are going through our preparatory process, when we are getting into Focus 10 and beyond, into that very deeply relaxed state, one of the things that we've talked about is the importance of focusing your conscious attention as your body falls asleep. And we do that because we don't want our mind to just wander and start thinking of all sorts of things that are going on, right? Whether it's things like our worries and concerns. Remember, those things we're supposed to put into our energy conversion box. But sometimes thoughts still slip in and spill in. And what can happen is you are going to get diverted or misdirected, and you're going to stop focusing on the purpose of the tape, and your mind just wanders. Or your mind might wander into a dream, right? And then all that's going to do is, again, be another distraction, and we're going to miss out on the purpose of the tapes. So like we've talked about before, one of the things that I do in order to stay conscious and concentrate on something while I'm falling asleep, I use the symbols that I've created through my art. And it's going to be important for you to find symbols or sigils or things that have meaning to you that you can singularly focus on as you're going into focus 10, as you're going into this hypnotic state. Again, we want to be focused because what that does is when you focused on some singular object or symbol or shape or whatever it might be, that is going to, again, it's going to keep you awake and conscious while your body falls asleep instead of your mind floating off, drifting off into unconsciousness. So let's see, Dr. Monroe here talks about the release of the extremities. So again, this is part of the separation process. He's kind of in this chapter talking about the different steps that it takes to actually achieve that out-of-body experience. And through the release of extremities, he's talking about how you can first test using your arms and legs, right? That's kind of the easiest parts of your body to really start to experience this out-of-body experience. And one of the things that he talks about is through practice, visualizing your arms, right? Because your physical body, again, is going to be laying flat, your arms down to your side. And you're going to visualize your arms lifting up, right? And as you're laying there, again, your eyes are closed, but you're seeing, you're visualizing the things, you're imagining your body in front of you. And you're going to see your arm, your spirit arm, kind of lift up. And you can almost see both your physical arm and your spirit arm at the same time. And he talks about one way you can do that is by stretching your spirit arm. So again, your physical arm is going to be laying flat, but you can try to stretch it out and stretch it and keep stretching it until it reaches another part somewhere at a distance, right? And these are just visualization techniques. These are just physical techniques because you're going to, again, your body is going to be asleep. That temporary paralyzing chemical that your body releases at nighttime as you fall asleep, that's already going to be there. So your physical arm isn't going to be moving. But because you're consciously awake, you're now going to be trying to move your arm or move your leg. It's a lot like when your arm falls asleep or your leg falls asleep from losing circulation. You try to move it and nothing happens. But when you practice this technique as you're going into the tapes and going into Focus 10, you can now move that spirit body, right? So the first thing he talks about there is the release of the extremities. The disassociation technique. Now, I think that's the first time we've heard the word disassociation when it comes to the Gateway Experience tapes. We often hear about this in today's culture, about people being disassociated as they go through life because life is boring and mundane, and you're often forced to do things you don't want to do through work or whatever it may be. So people kind of disassociate. They allow their body just to do what it has to do in order to, do the chores, get the paycheck by going to work and doing that mundane job Monday through Friday, whatever it is. And mentally, you kind of disassociate yourself from it. You're thinking about other things. It's a lot like what we're doing through the Gateway Experience tapes. We allow our body to fall asleep, but we are thinking about our spirit body doing other things. So Dr. Monroe here says, disassociation technique. The simplest method to use in separating from the physical is the lift-out procedure. The intent here is not to travel to far-off places, but get acquainted with the sensation in your own room with familiar surroundings. So again, this lift-off procedure. Most of the things he's talking about here, again, are prior to the Gateway Experience tapes being created. As you listen through the tapes, you're going to have audio triggers that are from sounds, right? Again, like the spaceship taking off, things like that, that are going to help you in this lift out procedure. And Dr. Monroe is also going to be walking you through it. He's going to say things like, you're feeling lighter and lighter, and you are floating higher and higher. And he's going to give you this kind of suggestibility as you are in this deeply relaxed state, this hypnotic state. And it's going to help you, work your spirit body out of the physical. So Monroe goes on to say here, to establish the condition, achieve the vibrational state, and maintain complete control of your thought process. Again, that vibrational state, I normally feel it mostly when I'm coming out of the tapes, but you can also feel it as you're starting to fall asleep. Over this last week, a few times I've taken a nap, and I did start to feel that vibrational feeling as I was falling asleep, or my goal really was to try to, while I was taking these naps, again, through experimentation, was to stay awake for them, trying to stay in that conscious state of mind like he's talking about here. And I did feel that vibrational state several times. He says, you are going to stay only in the confines of your familiar room. So now he's talking about here, when you first are having these out-of-body experiences, you want to stay close to your physical body, within your physical room, so you don't get disoriented. You're going to think of getting lighter and floating upward, of how nice it would be to float upward. Be sure to think how nice it would be, as the subjective associated thought is most important. And I think he does, if I remember correctly, during the tapes, he does say things like, it's going to feel very nice to float upwards, right? And it's when we are adding those type of words to it, it helps soothe us. It helps us not be afraid of the, experience that we're about to have. You want to do this because it is something you will respond to emotionally. You react even before the act in anticipation. If you continue to hold only these thoughts, you will disassociate and float gently upward from your physical. You may not achieve it the first time or the second, but quite surely, if you have accomplished the preceding exercises, you will achieve it. And again, all of this takes practice. This isn't something that you can just pick up and over a few weekends be, an expert in hypnosis and out-of-body experiences and astral travel. That's not what this is, okay? This is a long-term commitment. It's something that you're going to practice over and over again. And hopefully it's something in your life that you are at a place in your life where you've made this decision to do this consciously on your own. You have the time to do it. You put in the effort to do it. And there aren't time constraints or anything like that, right? You want to be able to do this kind of on an open-ended time frame and move forward with every tape. And every tape, you're going to learn new skills, right? We've talked about this. It's linear in fashion. You have to start with tape 1 and work your way through. You don't want to skip any tapes here. So the first technique he talked about was just thinking about floating upward. He says the second method here is the rotation technique. Both of these we will be taught during the tapes. The rotation technique, which has been mentioned elsewhere, under the same prescribed conditions, slowly try to turn over, just as if you were turning over in bed to be more comfortable. Make no attempt to help yourself rotate with either arms or legs. Start turning by twisting the top of your body, your head and shoulders first. By all means, move slowly, exerting gentle but firm pressure. So again, we are laying there flat on our back, arms to our side, legs straight. We are listening to the tapes with the eye covers on. Our body has become deeply relaxed. It's moving into sleep through Focus 10, this hypnotic state. And one of the things that we're going to do is, just like I just described, is your body is going to be temporarily paralyzed because of the chemicals that naturally occur during sleep. So your body's not going to be moving, but because your mind is awake, you're going to exert those same type of thought processes that you would if you were awake and you wanted to roll over to your right side or roll over onto your left side to sleep, right? You're going to, in your mind, do that same thing. And what's going to happen is your spirit body is going to move. It's going to rotate while your physical body stays in the same place. And this is that feeling, again, of coming out of the shell, right? Working your way out of it. Working your way out of the wetsuit. It's a process, right? And the rotational technique is very interesting in future seasons of Mind War and future tapes. Dr. Monroe walks us through all sorts of rotation techniques, which really feel amazing. It's a lot like almost being on a roller coaster. It feels really cool. Those are really fun tapes, and we'll get to those soon. Here he says, local experiments and familiarization. Once you have succeeded in the separation process, it is most important for your own objective continuity that you remain in complete control. The only possible way to do this seems to be by staying close to the physical in the early stages. Whatever you may feel emotionally, keep in close proximity to the physical. Okay, so he's saying when you first have your out-of-body experience, again, you're going to stay close to the physical body. You're going to, travel within your own room. You're going to stay close. And really, in those tapes where we first start to have these out-of-body experiences, that's it. That's as far as he lets us go. At first, you just float a few feet above your body, and then you go back in, right? When you first separate from the body, it is just really exploring the room around you before you go back in. It's not the astral projection and astral travel where you are experimenting and traveling out into locale 1, our current reality, or locale 2, the dreamlike state, or even to locale 3 where we shoot off into the abyss, right? So Dr. Monroe says here, now he's talking about coming back into the body. He says, to return under these conditions, merely think yourself back into the physical and you will return. All of this is about thought. Whether it's imagining the worlds that we are visiting, imagining the tools that we're creating, it's all about imagination and thought. And once you have left your physical body, in order to return, you simply need to think, I'm going to return to my physical body. If you have used the first method of separation, the reintegration is relatively simple. When you are back in exact alignment, you will be able to move any portion of the physical body and reactivate any or all of your physical senses. Each time you return, open your physical eyes and physically sit up so that you know you are completely back together. This is to ensure orientation, to instill confidence that you can return at will, and most important, to assure yourself of continued contact with the material world in which you now belong. So, like I've said before, at the end of the tapes, Dr. Monroe is either going to count us down from focus 10 back to 1, and he says things like, now that we've got to 1, it's time to wake up, move your body, sit up, open your eyes, take a deep breath. It's very important to do that. Again, there's going to be times where you're going to you're going to be tired, and you're going to want to just stay in that very relaxed state and just drift off into sleep. But these tools that we're learning, it's very important to do that wake up process, to wake up out of the tapes and make sure you are reoriented back into your physical body. The next step in familiarization is to separate to a slightly farther distance, applying the same procedures. Any distance up to 10 feet will do. Always keep mental concentration on the single purpose without straying thought patterns, especially in these extended exercises, So again, you want to stay very focused on what you're doing. You don't want to exit your body. Say you are exploring around your own room in your spirit body. The last thing you want to do is start having random thoughts and drift off into dreamland. After you have become accustomed to the feeling of being more apart mentally, tell yourself that you can see. Do not think of the act of opening your eyes, as this may well transmit you to the physical and diminish the vibrational state. Instead, think of seeing, that you can see and you will see. There will be no sensation of eye opening. The blackness will just disappear suddenly. So again, our eyes are closed. Our physical eyes are closed. We are looking at darkness. We are seeing with our spirit eyes. And when you are in the sleep dojo, again, it's just going to be the darkness. That's where you're at. That's what you're seeing. But when it's time to have that out-of-body experience and then, explore and work in the locale one, the real world, you're going to have to see that. And you don't open your physical eyes to see, you tell yourself, I am now seeing. And it's like seeing in a dream. At this stage, you may be filled with strong desires, which can be almost overwhelming. This is the greatest problem that you may face at any moment. These desires, appearing unannounced and unexpectedly, are subjective and emotional and can easily submerge the deductive reasoning position you have built up so carefully. The most important clue is to understand that they must not be labeled evil or wrong. They simply exist, and you must learn to cope with them. The rule is, do not deny the existence of these desires. Recognize them as a deep, integral part of you that cannot be thought away. Until you do this, you will be unable to control them. So again, there are going to be certain natural desires and thoughts and feelings that you may have that arise in your second state when you are thinking clearly now, when you are really in a place to where you are thinking without the confines of the physical, without the wet blanket of society and culture on you, and you might start to have thoughts that are deeply rooted inside you. And because of conditioning in the real world, your first, instinct may say, oh, well, that's an evil thought. That's a bad thought. I don't want to have that thought. But instead of thinking of these things as evil or whatever it may be, whatever conditioning that's been placed upon you to think of these thoughts as negative, instead, we're going to accept them for what they are, explore them if we need to, but at the very least say, I recognize this thought for what it is. I'm not going to be afraid of it. I'm not going to fear it. I'm not going to demean it or punish myself because of this thought. I'm simply going to recognize it and then move on. These desires include freedom to reveal in the release from the physical limitations and gravitational effects. It's very true. There is a very interesting sense of freedom when you do leave your physical body. The physical body, again, the temple, this gift that we were given in order to experience life. At times it has its limitations, and you do find freedom when you leave it. Let's see, sexual contact, which can be strictly at the sensory level, right? So again, just another one of these physical limitations that our body puts on us, and you find freedom from that when you are out of body. Religious ecstasy. Okay, varying based upon the intensity of early life conditioning. So if you have been conditioned through religion, right? I've told you before, if you follow the mind war here, if you work your way through the Gateway Experience tapes with us and then move into future seasons of the Mind War podcast, where we start to add the things that we've learned here into our spiritual practices, you're going to start experiencing your religion for the very first time. Religious ecstasy. Okay, don't be afraid of it, and don't let it overwhelm you either. Let's see. And others that may originate in unusual and environmental experiences of the individual. The belief held here is that everyone will have these subjective desires despite the most stringent discipline and self-analysis. What we speak of are those elements far below surface consciousness that comprise your own fundamental character and personality. We all have this, a fundamental character and personality, our deep down conscious thoughts, who we truly are, often stifled by culture and society, right? This is a place to find them, to explore them, examine them, and hopefully accept them at the same time. As has been explained earlier, these elements emerge because you are no longer just a conscious intellectual self. You are perhaps, for the first time, an entirety. It is. It's very interesting when you get into this state of mind and you start to realize and feel like, oh, this is who I truly am. This is what I truly am. Every part of you will be heard from and must be considered in any action you take. The trick is to keep the conscious reasoning you, the most cognizant of the physical world, in the dominant position. It isn't easy, he says. So again, as you do this exploration in the second state, you want to, the number one and most dominant thought process and has to be your conscious awake self, the self that you are every day in real life. That has to stay dominant, so we stay grounded and we stay connected to reality, connected to the physical. Okay, but we can also at secondary levels then do that further exploration and understand, oh, we are more than our physical bodies, because we're more than physical matter. There's something more here, and we can explore that. But we do it without, getting so completely disconnected from reality. Next is the infallible return signal. As noted, the fear of being unable to re-enter the physical is a basic deterrent to leaving the body. So here he talks about a return signal, something that's going to get you back into the body. It says, first, if you have difficulty, don't panic. Again, never in my experiences through the Gateway Experience tapes have I had any trouble returning to the physical body. In fact, returning is sometimes the most exciting part, because you really feel it. You either feel yourself rolling back into your body through the rotation technique, or you feel yourself being reabsorbed into your body from coming back from, say, Focus 12, that extended sense of awareness. Your awareness now returns, it absorbs back into the physical. Or when you slide back into your body, almost like putting on a wetsuit. And as Dr. Monroe is counting you down from 10 to 1 with each number, and as he describes it, you're starting to feel your legs again. You're starting to feel your hands again and your arms again. And you really recognize, oh, I'm back in my physical body now. He says, terror only aggravates the situation. Again, don't panic. Internalize this simple formula and call upon it. To return to the physical from wherever you are, think of your physical body. Again, this is all mental. This is all imagination. Just think of the physical and you will return. Mentally begin to move some part of your physical body. Move a finger or a toe. Physically take a deep, deliberate breath of air. So, if you have ever had a sleep paralysis moment where you've wanted to wake up out of it, one of the fastest ways to do it is literally to move your fingers or toes. I've done this multiple times in sleep paralysis issues, or when I've had sleep paralysis phenomenon occur, right? The fastest way to wake up out of it is to move your fingers or toes. Reactivate your 5 physical senses. Move your jaw or your tongue. Any act that will involve physical motion or use physical energy will work. If one doesn't immediately take effect, try another. Without question, some such thought action will begin to bring you back to the physical. It is merely a question of which one works best for you. When this technique is applied, return is virtually immediate, right? And it's true. Again, if you are listening to the tapes and something external occurs, right? Let's say for some reason you sneezed or something like that. That's a physical thing that immediately is going to return you back to the physical. I've had this experience before where Leo, my Boston Terrier, my best buddy, he goes on all of these journeys with me. And normally he just curls up at my feet and falls fast asleep. But sometimes, you know how dogs are, they like to scurry around and move the blanket around a million times. Well, I've had that happen where, say, 10 minutes into the tape where you're really getting into focus 10, you're getting into this relaxed state, things are starting to happen, and Leo starts shuffling around and moving around. Now that brings me back into the physical body. It is an automatic direction finder and a rocket blast combined. Reintegration seems to be instantaneous when this is used. However, this immediate return method eliminates your power of choice or decision. Once it is put into effect, you cannot stop it. You will return to the physical without any opportunity to know what is happening and how it is taking place. Thus, it should be thought of as an emergency reserve measure rather than a consistent step in your methodology. Under ordinary conditions, you should think of or feel the direction and location of your physical body. Then, with no urgency and in a calm, willful manner, start to return. Again, it's much better to rotate back into the physical, be absorbed back into the physical, than this more kind of emergency reserve measure, which he's talking about here, where, again, if you are experiencing something that you're maybe a little afraid of, or it's a little too exciting, whatever may happen, and you feel like you want to get out of it and you want to return, you move your finger, and now you're just going to be back into the physical, you're going to be awake again. But it's much better to learn the steps and the process of rolling back into the body, sliding back into the physical wetsuit, right? Okay, so there you have it. The foregoing may seem ritualistic, but it is not intended to. It may appear no better than magic formula of the Middle Ages. I'm telling you, folks, the Gateway Experience tapes are a scientific way to learn magic, okay? And we are going to focus more on the magical side and taking the tools that we have learned here and applying them to our spiritual practices of magic in future seasons. To date, there are no explanations of why the techniques work. Perhaps in the years to come, interested and curious physicists, chemists, neurologists, and other scientists will develop workable theories to fit the action. If enough people undertake to examine it empirically, perhaps a new science will result. We are the experimenters. We are the people that he's talking about. We are exploring these techniques. We are exploring these states of mind and these states of being. Okay? We are on this journey. And that's why it's so important that you take notes about your experiences and at some point publish those notes in a format that is comfortable to you. You know, that way when more people start to do this, like we're doing here, and start trying to more methodically and scientifically, like we're doing with the Mind War podcast here, really take a deep look at this. Now we're going to have people, you know, coming out of every corner, telling us their experiences, sharing with us what they've done, where they've been, how they felt. And that's very important because, again, a new science may emerge from that. Think of this. We live in a time today where it seems like all science has been discovered. There's nothing new. Well, this is something new here. This is something that people are still so afraid of. Not here. There is no fear here. Not in the Mind War. Chapter 18, Analysis of Events. So Dr. Monroe starts to go over his notes. And in the last few chapters here, he really starts to classify things. And we'll just go through these briefly here, some of his thoughts here. So chapter 18, analysis of events. Preliminary stage. This includes all events and activities prior to the symptom of solar plexus cramp described earlier, earlier life patterns disclosed, 2 instances of explained paradoxes that seemed relevant to this research. So now he's talking about making sure that part of your research is writing about things that may have happened to you in your life long before you've ever heard of the gateway experiences or started this journey, okay? And we're going to read about one of those here, and we'll see how it might associate with what we're doing here. The first incident occurred when I was 8 years old. This is Dr. Robert Monroe. He reported to his parents about a dream in which he sat in a room paneled in red-brown wood. In one corner was a cabinet from which came music and voices, which looked much like a Victrola. In front of the cabinet was a window, and there were moving pictures in the window. The voices from the cabinet matched what the people in the window seemed to be saying. It was like the moving pictures shown at school, except that the people's words were heard rather than spelled out on the screen. Also, the moving picture in the cabinet was colored just as people and things really were. Okay. So Dr. Robert Monroe is talking about a dream he had when he was 8 years old. Again, the notes that he was reading from here were from the late 50s, early 60s, when he was already in his 40s, working on turning 50, right? So when he was 8 years old, this was long before color television was even invented. And the only time that you actually saw a movie was when he was at school. And there was no sound with the movie. It was literally a silent film where you would read the words, the captions at the bottom of the screen, okay? And so now at 8 years old, before color television had been invented, he has a dream where he's sitting in a red-brown wood paneled room, and in the corner was a box with moving pictures of people in color, and you could hear their voices. Now he goes on to say, 30 years later, I sat in a mahogany paneled room and watched color television for the first time. As best as can be recalled, I had never seen any color motion pictures at the age when the dream took place. I 100% believe that Dr. Monroe here is describing deja vu. We've talked about it in earlier episodes. I have had deja vu several times in my life. And what I believe that deja vu is simply in the past, at some time in your past, you have dreamt about the future. And now you are living through that future that you dreamt about. So this is a sliding scale because, again, it's happened to me several times in my life. So when I was a young boy, I would have a dream, and then maybe as a teenager or in the 20s or 30s, I lived through that dream. And what's interesting is I might be having dreams today of things that I will experience in the future through deja vu. Or maybe I've already had those dreams in the past and I still haven't lived through them yet, right? But I believe exactly what Dr. Monroe here is describing is what we know of as deja vu. So I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was important to mention there. So let's go on. Later in the chapter here, it says, I developed an interest in the possibilities of data learning during sleep. Okay, so now we're going to move directions here a little bit. And in the last episode, we talked about how Dr. Monroe mentioned that one time before he had an out-of-body experience, as he was laying down trying to get into that relaxed state, he had been watching football all afternoon. I guess it was a Sunday, right? And so as he was falling asleep, he was all he was seeing was the football game being replayed over and over in his mind visually. He was imagining it because he'd been sitting there staring at the television for so many hours. I talked about how I often do the same thing if I'm playing video games right before I try to fall asleep. It's like the video games are visually happening in your mind. It's almost like you're playing them in your mind, right? And so now he's asking, is there a way for us to use some of those techniques to do data learning? Can we learn while we sleep? It says here, to explore the potential of this interest, I made some studies of past and present concepts of the waking unconscious mind. There was supporting evidence that the unconscious recorded all sensory input data while awake and asleep. The problem was to introduce intelligent and organized data during sleep and to provide conscious recall when desired. So he's saying that through other experiments that he had done research on, there is an understanding that our unconscious mind, even though we're deep asleep, our body's temporarily paralyzed, right? We're totally unconscious. We are still our sensory input is still there. We can still hear what's going on and we can still process what's going on, right? And I guess a good example of that is if you're sleeping and all of a sudden, you're sleeping there, it's a beautiful summer afternoon, you're taking a nap, the window's wide open, and all of a sudden an ambulance or a fire truck goes blasting by your house with lights and sirens on, you're going to hear it and you're going to wake up to it and you're going to recognize what those sounds are, right? If your senses were completely shut off during sleep, you wouldn't hear the sirens going off. You wouldn't smell the smoke in the house. Oh, God forbid, right? Whatever might be happening externally, your senses wouldn't pick them up, and then you would just sleep right through that. Here it says, to carry out this research in a convenient pattern, I made auto-hypnotic sound recordings to test various approaches to workable technique. Oh boy, folks. What he's talking about here is the very first iterations of the Gateway Experience tapes, where now he's starting to make tapes that are going to help along the process and possibly help us learn while we're sleeping. Now, this is different than what we're doing through the tapes, but I think as we read through here, we're going to see that some of the things he did in these preliminary tapes carried over. This seemed to be the first logical step, as the results had been obtained along similar lines utilizing hypnotic sleep instead of the natural sleep state. So again, this, what does he call it here? The possibilities of data learning during sleep, he's saying that it's really under the hypnotic state, right? Because that's what we're doing through the Gateway Experience tapes. We're being hypnotized. It's not necessarily a full natural sleep state, but it's more of a hypnotic state of sleep. And that's what we're going to do instead of that natural sleep state where we're just totally unconscious. The reason for the use of tape recordings was to depersonalize the technique and to ensure identical tests among different subjects. The tapes were designed for use in both isolated, to be in a booth, isolated from light and sound. The tapes used were deliberately simple in content. There was a period of induction to create hypnotic sleep, our preparatory process. In following this, a series of direction suggestion units were incorporated into the conditioning pattern. These varies according to tests and the results desired. Data learning, for example, was confined to multiplication tables and to Spanish and French vocabulary in idiomatic phrases. These were always accompanied by suggestion of full and complete memory and post-hypnotic suggestion that recall could be obtained by the conscious state by a mental physical cue, such as thinking of the number 555 and tapping fingers on the table 5 times simultaneously. So again, he's talking about how he had created tapes where he maybe started laying out those first versions of the preparatory process. And then instead of going on and teaching us things like color breathing, like we're going to learn here in a few moments, he would, in the tapes, add things like multiplication tables or learning Spanish or French, right? And then he said, in a post-hypnotic state, which is our normal life after we've gone through these hypnotic tapes that he's working with here, he says in order to retain that information and recall it, one of the things you can do is think of the number 555. Very interesting number. We hear that a lot through occultism and esotericism. So it's very interesting that the very scientific mind of Dr. Monroe still does, travel into these occult territories, okay? And through the work that we're doing here, we're really going to do our best to combine the two. So each induction tape recording also included a suggestion that the subject would improve both physically and mentally. That this affirmation was somewhat more than a generality. No details were suggested as to how this improvement would take place, yet each functional area of the body, the nervous, circulatory, glandular, and the digestive systems, were to be completely normal according to the instructions given to the subject. Both the health and recall suggestions then were reinforced with each induction and use of the tape. In light of later incidents, this may have been important. Each experimental tape was carefully annotated with every spoken word identically following a prepared script and routine. The tapes closed with a pattern to bring the subject back to complete and normal wakefulness. Suggestion here was extremely simple and effective, with no elaborate words that might be misinterpreted by the subject. The tapes were played at to about 11 subjects, ranging from ages 7 to 50, and the results implied a definitive potential value with some improvement in techniques. So he talks here about his mantra that he reads to us at the end of every tape, talking about how our physical body, all the different parts of the physical body, the different systems of the body, we're going to be working healthy, naturally. They're going to be functioning perfectly. And he reminds us this every time, mentally, emotionally. We're going to be doing awesome when we wake up from this tape. At the end of every tape, he does it. And it's very important. Listen to his words. Don't just let them be some routine that you drift off through. Allow yourself to let those words sink in. It's very important because, again, part of this is self-help. One of the things that we're doing is becoming our own best friends, right? We're cheerleading ourselves. And Dr. Monroe is leading us in a cheer. I know that sounds silly, right? But that's what we're doing. We're doing positive talk and affirmation to ourselves as we come out of the hypnotic state. And then again, don't forget, remember the importance of waking up at the end of the tape, stretching your arms and legs, taking a deep breath, getting up, moving around, taking notes, and really being conscious of what just occurred. Let's see. So again, he does a lot more analysis of his notes. I'll let you read through those. But on the conclusion here, he says the following conclusions were reached during his experimentation. Okay, so number one, there does exist a second body interspersed or in conjunction with the physical body. So he's saying this is one of the conclusions of his work, that we have a second body and that it does exist. That's a good thing. It's something that all throughout history, mankind has grappled with this question. And we are here as explorers, as scientists, right? As experimenters saying, we have experienced the second body. It is real, okay? The second body can move and act independently of the physical body. The next conclusion is that our second body can leave our physical body and we can move and interact with the different locales that we go to. These movements and actions can be made partially under the control of the conscious mind. So again, we have to stay conscious to what's occurring. But remember, when you get into the second state, it's not just your spirit body, it's not just your consciousness, which is really the thought process of your physical body, but the soul appears. And the soul is that guide that's going to help guide you through these things, right? It's always there in the background, our soul, right? Some sensory inputs in the second body register as they do in the physical. Others are beyond translation. So the five senses, right? So you're going to be able to see things in the second state. You're going to be able to move, and you might be able to even feel things in the second state. But as far as smelling or tasting, those might be beyond our normal senses, right? Because our physical body is not actually, smelling or tasting, right? And you're definitely going to be able to hear. It's not the same type of hearing that we have today, where vibrations hit our eardrums and it turns into electricity in our brain and all that stuff, right? It's more of that kind of telepathy like we see in movies, okay? And some movements in the second body occur in identical space-time to that of the physical counterpart, which again is locale one, us traveling through the here and now, our reality, our current world, in our second state body, right? That's locale one. Okay, so that was chapters 17 and 18. So chapter 17 was the separation process, and chapter 18 was analysis of events. And those, again, from the book Journeys Out of the Body by Dr. Robert Monroe. And soon we're going to be working from tape, wave 2 threshold, tape 4 color breathing. And we'll get into that after a word from our sponsor. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Welcome back, folks. So let's dive into wave 2 threshold, tape 4 color breathing. Okay. So Dr. Monroe starts out, move now to focus 10 by the method you have learned. Use all the method, and I will see you there in focus 10. That's it. That's all that he says at the beginning of this tape. And now we go through our preparatory process. Now think how different this is from earlier tapes in wave 1, where Dr. Monroe was holding our hands, walking us through baby steps, through each phase, each step in the preparatory process, right? He literally would count us down, or count us from 1 to 10 to focus 10. And with each number, he would tell us about which part of our body was falling into deep sleep, right? He would talk us through all of this process. And now he's just saying, you know the method, I'll meet you there. Okay, and so now he says, in focus 10, here is a simple way to reduce emotional pressure throughout your total system. Whenever you consciously desire to reduce within yourself any emotional charge down to the point where it is no longer harmful or important. Okay. He's going to talk to us and teach us tools about how to reduce our emotional pressure. And before we do that, again, remember, we are only in focus 10. This is the sleep dojo. Your body is deeply relaxed, but your mind is wide awake. You can almost experience the same type of thing by simply laying in bed, closing your eyes, and trying to, focus on something while you allow your body to relax, right? We haven't had any expansion of awareness. There is no out-of-body experience here. We're in the sleep dojo. We're in that focus 10, that first kind of phase, right? So now again, he's going to teach us tools to where we can deal with emotional pressures, okay? He says when you are in a state where you are having these emotional pressures, all you need to do is close your eyes, inhale deeply with your physical lungs, hold your breath for a moment, and think of the calming, cleansing energy of the color green. When you do this and then exhale your breath slowly, calming, cleansing green energy will slowly and surely push all excess and harmful emotional charges down through your physical body and out through the soles of your feet, leaving your entire system. Your entire system will be calm and confident, strong and serene. Okay. You find yourself, you're consciously awake going throughout your day. You're being, just hit by all kinds of things, and you're having emotional pressure. You're feeling emotionally riled up. You're upset about something. You're sad, angry, whatever these emotional pressures are that you're feeling. What Dr. Monroe is saying is stop for a moment. Take a deep breath. You're going to inhale nice and deep, and you're going to hold that breath. And while you do, you're going to think of the color green. And the color green is going to, it's a calming and cleansing green energy. And as you exhale, you're going to visualize that, because now this green color, you've inhaled, it's swirling around, you're holding that breath into your mind, you're envisioning the color green, calming, cleansing, and as you exhale, you're going to allow that color green to just envelop your entire body. It's going to flow downwards throughout your body, and it's going to exit out your feet. And as it does, it's going to push away all those emotionally charged issues and thoughts and feelings that you have. You're going to allow that calming, cleansing green energy to envelop you and push out all those emotional thoughts, right? He says the more you perform this exercise, the easier and more effective it will become. This is a simple way to reduce emotional pressure throughout your total system. Whenever you consciously desire to reduce within you any emotional charge down to the point where it is no longer harmful or important at all you need to do is close your eyes, inhale deeply with your physical lungs, hold your breath for a moment, and think of the calming, cleansing energy of green. All right, folks. We are moving now, This is still definitely part of the self-help because, again, we're dealing with emotional pressures. We're still in that self-help phase. But now we're moving almost a little into the esoteric. Now we're moving a little into occultism where we're visualizing this color green and associating specific, calming and cleansing descriptors to it. And we're going to allow it to suppress, or not suppress, but really cleanse us of those emotional pressures that we're having, okay? And like we've talked about before, these are simple distractions. This is scientifically how it would be described. All of these tools that we've learned, in order to remember some, stopping for a moment, and touching the top of your head, taking that deep breath and thinking, where is that thing that I've lost, right? If you need to be awake, taking the time, taking a deep breath, stopping what you're doing and thinking of the number 1. It's going to wake yourself up. You're going to be more vibrant when you do that, right? These are all distractions. And what they're doing is they're getting us out of that emotional downward spiral, right? you're going through something, your emotions are charged, and you just are spiraling towards the ground. You feel like you're going to crash at any moment and have just this emotional outburst, but instead, we're going to distract ourselves for a moment. Take that deep breath, hold it in our mind, view the color green, this calming, cleansing color, and then we're going to allow it to pour down through us, envelop us, and push out all of that emotional energy and calm it down. Help it subside, right? And again, it's just distracting us from, just momentarily distracting us from those bad feelings. And that allows us to recenter, refocus, and then go on about whatever the situation is, handle it differently, move forward without all that emotional pressure. Okay. Let's see. All right, so this one's fun. Here is a special way you can charge your physical body for an act of great speed and great strength, with smooth coordination. From this moment on, whenever you desire to perform a physical act with far greater strength and faster speed than ever before, and with total smooth coordination of your entire physical body, all you need to do is close your eyes, your physical eyes, inhale deeply, and with your physical lungs, and hold your breath. Then think of the physical act to be performed, and then the strong color energy of red. When you exhale the breath from your lungs and open your eyes, you will be able to immediately perform the physical act you have pictured with far greater strength, much more rapidly, and with smooth, total coordination of the physical body, far greater than ever before. The more you consciously use this method of performing a physical act, the more strongly and more rapidly with total coordination, the easier and more effective it will become. Okay, so Dr. Monroe is now talking about doing a physical act. Let's say you're exercising, right? Or you're playing sports, something like that, where you need to physically do something with more speed, with more strength, and with better coordination. Before you do that act, you're going to want to close your eyes, inhale deeply, hold your breath for a moment, and visualize yourself doing the physical act. Okay? Very important. We've heard this before in a million other ways, but now we're doing it here. We're building these tools into our mind and into our psyche and into our conscious, and now we're going to be able to use them. So when you want to do this physical act with great strength and great speed, you're going to, again, close your eyes, inhale deeply, hold that breath, visualize yourself completing the act, visualize the color red, and then exhale. And when you do, now go do that physical act, okay? So, that's interesting. As an older guy now, my exercise and physical acts are slower and, much gentler than they used to be. I don't exercise with the gusto that I used to. I'm not out there training like I did when I was a Marine, right? I'm not doing those type of physical things. But if you are a younger person or you are doing these type of physical activities, this is a great technique. Again, that visualization technique. We've heard, I'm sure you have, some of the top professional athletes in the world talk about their visualization techniques. They visualize themselves winning over and over and over again. And that's what we're doing here, okay? So the next one. So that was our emotional state of being, our physical state of being. And now here it says, let's see. At any here we go. At any point in your life, from this moment forward, whenever you need to bring any part of your physical body into normal, healthy, balanced operating condition, All you consciously need to do is close your eyes, inhale deeply, and hold your breath. During that moment, think of the healing, cooling energy of purple. Look with your closed eyes at the part of your physical body that requires help. Send the flow of purple energy to it, saying in your mind, heal, balance, and then exhale and open your eyes. When you do this, that part of your physical body on which you focus will begin immediately to restore and rebalance into a normal, healthy operating condition. And it will do this far more rapidly and completely than ever before. Okay. Dr. Monroe now is saying, if you have some type of physical ailment, some type of condition, myself personally, here's what happened during this part of the tape, okay? So I have a medical condition that can cause pain in my abdomen. That's kind of the best way to describe it. And so as I'm listening to the tape and he's saying, think of the part of your body that is in pain. We want you to think of the color purple. Purple is that healing color, okay? A little side note, purple is the color that the United States really needs to start focusing on. Right now we're divided basically to the red and blue, and then some of us are just white, right? But if you mix red and blue together, you get purple. That's how we're going to heal this nation, is through the color purple. I know that sounds strange, but hey, it is what it is. So, again, so what I was doing during this tape, I was having some pain going into the beginning of this tape. And as I was laying there and I thought of the color purple, I was thinking of the pain in my abdomen, and then I exhaled and released that flow of healing purple energy. And here's what happened. So basically, when you're in pain, whatever the pain stems from, you're often going to find yourself kind of contracted. Your muscles are contracted. There's tension in that area, right? And so that's what I was finding, that my abdominal muscles were really tight. I was really just almost doubled over, right? And so when I heard this part, and when I went through the exercise, and when I released that healing color of purple, all it did was really allow me to focus on the abdomen for a minute and relax it. And that muscle tension went away, okay? The pain was still there. The initial and cause of the pain is still happening, and that's fine. But there was just a little bit of release of some of that tension. And I could just feel my whole abdomen just kind of calming down. The pain started to subside a little bit. It almost felt like, like a pain reliever was just flowing down to that area, right? It was very interesting. Again, it's that distraction. We are taking a moment to take a deep breath and distract ourselves from the pain and allowing that area to release the tension that might be involved with it, okay? So that was the healing color of purple. And so he says, now to finish off the tape, now relax and focus. 10, right? He talks about basically, again, all of those things, his mantra at the end of the tapes, where he tells us that we are going to be renewed, right? Every part of our body is going to be functioning better. He says a new energy to do and be, the new physical and emotional and mental life activities are far more beneficial and constructive than ever before. From this moment on, you will live and continue to live more and more in this new wave of bright and joyful being. This is those pep talks, right? He is our cheerleader. We're cheerleading for ourselves. You will, this is important. You will help others attain the realization of total self as you are doing, because you now recognize this to be part of your new knowledge and your new understanding. The flow from within to without, this is the beginning of a greater pattern of you from this moment on. Okay. Again, you will help others attain the realization of total self. We've talked about this before. The only burden that comes with this new knowledge is the fact that you have to share it with others. It is the one commandment that comes with learning these techniques and going through the Gateway Experience tapes and actually experiencing them. You have to share it with others. Again, a word of warning from Mind War Season 1, where we went through the book Mind War by Dr. Michael Aguino. Do not propagandize your family and friends, those people closest to you, with the things you're learning here. Because if you upset them, now you have to deal with them every day. Instead, when you are starting to share things, share with other like-minded individuals who are open to these types of thoughts and processes, and then you can explore and expand. But it's the one burden that comes with these tapes, is you will have to share your experiences with others. With all of these, we will move forward to take up your changing life activities with complete confidence, cheerfulness, joy, and a new strength and energy, and with surety and calm serenity. When you return to the conscious physical waking state, your body will be equalized as to overcome all the things that might hinder or prevent it from being or giving its best mental, spiritual, and physical self. And then he continues on there with that mantra and wakes you up from the tape. So we associated the color green with emotional well-being. When we need to calm ourselves emotionally, we're going to stop whatever we're doing, take a deep breath, close our eyes. As you inhale, you hold it, you hold your breath, you inhale this color green into your mind, and then as you exhale, you allow it to pour down through you, and it's going to push all of that emotional turmoil out of you, right? And then you're going to go on and continue on with whatever situation that you're in, but you're going to do it without being emotionally pressured. The color red, he associated it with physical activity. If you have some type of physical activity that you need to do, if you're exercising, playing sports, whatever it may be, you're going to, again, inhale, take that deep breath, hold it in your mind. You're going to visualize yourself doing that physical exercise or whatever it may be. But you're going to visualize yourself doing it faster, with more strength and more coordination than you ever have before. And then you're going to think of the color red and you're going to exhale. And as you do, when you open your eyes, then you're going to go and you're going to perform that physical act better than you ever have before, right? This visualization technique. And then most importantly for me, and for many of you out there like me, that are dealing with some type of health condition that may cause physical pain, the healing color of purple. We're going to think of the area of our body that we're trying to heal. We're going to inhale deeply. We're going to hold that breath. Think of the healing color purple. And then when we exhale, we're going to push that healing color towards wherever part of our physical body is in pain. And we're going to just help release some of that tension and just relax it a little bit. And we're going to do this over and over again. It's not just a one-time thing. This is something that you should be doing throughout your day. And now, those were only 3 colors, right? And not only do we see that there are so many more colors on our rainbow triangle here, our rainbow pyramid, there are so many other colors out there on the spectrum. And one of the things that you can do Remember with Wave 1, Tape 6, where Dr. Monroe allows us just to explore our own purpose, right? One of the things that you could do is prior to going into that tape, you could associate a new skill with the color of your choice. And you can remind yourself while listening to that tape over and over and over again before going in, while you're listening to the tape, this color is going to be associated with this skill, with this tool that I want to develop, right? And so now we can start to add some of our own things. And we go back again to tape Wave 1-6, where you can just, whatever your purpose is, and your purpose may be, let's say if you are having trouble with alcoholism, right? Every time that you have a desire to drink, you could take a deep breath. In your mind, envision the color yellow. Associate yellow with the negative things that come with drinking, right? The being sick, the hangover, the money associated with whatever things that the alcohol is destroying in your life, whatever negative things that it's bringing into your life, associate the color yellow with it. So when you exhale that through your body and you say, you know what? I just don't need a drink just for another few minutes. If your alcoholism is to that level, maybe that's something that you can do, right? We have the ability to do this, right? Choose your colors, choose the tools, and you can apply them there. Also, like we learned through Journeys Out of the Body today, this idea of learning in the second state. So again, maybe go back to tape 1-6 where you're allowed to just explore your own purpose and thoughts. Now, let's say you're studying for a test, right? You're in a university course and you're studying for something. What you're going to want to do, and this would be great experimentation, is you're going to want to do your studying. Focus over and over again on the things that you need to be working on, and then go directly into the tape. Don't allow yourself to watch a movie or play video games or get distracted by your phone or anything like that. Do your homework, do your studying, and then go directly into, say, tape 1-6. And then you're just going to allow those visual patterns just to play over and over and over again in your mind. You're going to ask yourself the questions about the things you've been learning. You're going to repeat the answers over and over again, and those things are going to become even more ingrained. Or even better, if you're working on something and you can't really find the answer for it, you're going to work on that problem, and then through your listening to the tapes and through your exploration of your purpose, you might just find the answer you're looking for. It's what we're doing here, folks. Self-help, experimentation. We're experimenting with different sleep states and different tools that we are learning from Dr. Robert Monroe, tools that we can teach ourselves. We're learning in new and different ways, and that's the excitement of the Gateway Experience tapes. As always, I appreciate you being here. And remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.